like Stefan said, are a suggestion for a new narrative. And it's a narrative that I believe if we embrace it, will make it really clear that the change that needs to happen in our societies will be a change towards a better life for all. And this is so important. If we cannot get this across, we'll not make it. If we continue to talk about this as something becoming worse, we will not make it. And by focusing on realigning your life, you personally, more and more towards these 5 dimensions of true prosperity, your life, you will develop a way of life that is more in alignment with your true needs. So our current system is very good at taking care of material needs. And that's how we define prosperity, right? Most people think of prosperity as money. So we need a definition of prosperity that is less focused on the material and actually has what many traditional cultures were really good at, which is they had a lot of practices and structures and systems that helped address our social, psychological, and spiritual needs, which in the current system are completely neglected. In fact, the current system continuously pushes us to sacrifice those needs in favor of more materialism. Okay, so let's go into the let's go into the 5 dimensions. The first dimension I want to suggest is prosperity of time. And prosperity of time, I noticed, is just the phrase touches a deep wound in many people, especially amongst those that we consider to be very privileged in our society. Prosperity of time seems to be incredibly elusive, something we can constantly chase. So we try to save time, we try to speed up, and we try to become more efficient, to invent faster machines. And somehow it continues to elude us, right? So the key to prosperity of time is what we see in traditional cultures. Slowing down. Taking a moment, like now. This moment. And every time you choose to take a moment, to take one conscious breath, that's a radical act. That's an act of revolution in the current system. Because what you are doing is a sacrilege. You're wasting time. Right? So whenever you feel like rebelling, just stop. Take a moment, breathe consciously, become fully present, and notice in that very moment you're stepping into prosperity of time. And that, again, I want to say, is a radical act. And what you will find is that the more you do that in your life, the more things will fall into place. Sometimes when I talk about this, people say, but wait a minute, like, it's climate change and we have to speed up and we can't do this, and you're telling us to slow down, we have to. Guys, with this mindset, we're just going to recreate the same thing over and over and over again. We need to stop, to reconnect with ourselves. And I've noticed in my own life, I've been doing this for over a decade. And the more I've had the courage to slow down, the greater my impact has become. And I know this is really counterintuitive, and it's like it goes counter everything you've learned probably, because we learn like to have an impact, you have to work hard and you have to, like not sleep, and we hear about these people sleeping 4 hours a night, In my experience, it doesn't work. What works is slowing down and connecting, because then you will be attuned. You will be attuned to what the ancient Greeks called kairos. And that's the god of the opportune moment. And now is the moment to do this. And now is the moment to do this. And then every action you take is connected to the web of life. And this is why things move with ease and grace. And you will reconnect to the natural rhythms. You will sleep enough again. You will eat when it's time to eat. You will breathe more deeply. And you have already become part of the change you wish to see in the world. So let's take a moment to give thanks. Take a moment to give thanks for prosperity of time in your life. Take a moment to acknowledge the radical steps that you have already taken to align yourself with this dimension of prosperity. Take a moment to acknowledge the courage that probably took and continues to take. And take a moment to acknowledge this miracle that this moment is always available to us. You can always stop for a moment and look for it. Okay, where is it? It's right here, holding me. Okay, so let's move on to the second dimension of prosperity that I want to suggest. And that's prosperity of relationships. And prosperity of relationships is something that has greatly decreased in our society, the rich societies especially, even more so of the societies with great economic disparity. And this was even before the pandemic. In fact, I believe the pandemic even made us more aware of how much we need each other, so actually that was a good thing. But even before the pandemic, more and more people, also young people, were increasingly lonely. And there's some very powerful dynamics in our systems that create this loneliness. And it's very important for us to reawaken relationship, community, connection as a dimension of prosperity in our lives. We've created a system that suggests that we do not need each other. We have government systems taking care of all kinds of things for us, the medical insurance and then the retirement insurance and the unemployment insurance, and that's all great. But it has completely created an illusion that we as human beings can live without each other. And if I look at the level of anxiety in society and the level of isolation, for me it's evident that this is a myth. And we cannot soothe this need for connection, for support, for being held by each other through anonymous systems. We need to learn once again to connect to each other in a profound way and in a way that holds even under stress. That's what we're missing. Our independence has granted us the freedom to leave relationships that are toxic. And that's fantastic. On the other hand, it has also led to a development where it becomes very easy to just kick people out. And we are all in some way under that pressure. Because how inconvenient can we be? How uncomfortable, how much of ourselves can we show before the other person is going to be, you know what? Maybe not. So that's what happens. We show less and less of ourselves. We trust less and less in this bond. We dare less and less to reach out and to say, hey, I really need someone right now. I need someone to hold me. I need someone to listen to me. Or I need someone to support me in whatever way. So prosperity of relationships goes way beyond knowing lots of people or being popular. It's about the quality of our relationships and whether they will hold under stress. How many people do you have in your life that you know that they're really going to be there for you when you need them? And for how many people are you that person? That person that they can call anytime, day or night, with whatever they need, and you're going to be there. So let's take a moment of gratitude again for the prosperity of relationships that you have already cultivated in your life. Just take a moment to give thanks. So let's move on to the third dimension that I would like to suggest. And that's the dimension of creativity, prosperity of creativity. Prosperity of creativity means you spend a lot of your life in a state of flow. It means you cultivate and develop your talents regardless of their monetary value. And you share them with the world. Prosperity of creativity in our society is continuously crushed because really, really early we evaluate the talents of our children as to what extent they can convert it into money. And so many people have told me, I always loved to make music, but I was always told, you're not good enough. So I stopped. What a loss. So we have a culture where hundreds of thousands, sometimes even millions of people listen to one person. And we've created this illusion that, everybody else we don't need. We don't need their talent. And I think that's a really great mistake. Because the act of, hitting a button and hearing some great artist is a completely different process than me singing. Or me hearing my friend sing. With what we're trying to do, which is to create a new culture or new cultures, new local cultures, what the GEN movement for me is very much about, we need so much creativity and we need everyone's talents. And this is for me one of the great beauties of the GEN movement and of the Ecovillage movement. To see the flourishing of creativity, the flourishing of talents, and to see people up on stage or behind the scenes, like developing these crazy technological solutions and economic solutions and legal solutions, and like there's so much creativity that's coming out in this movement. There's so much prosperity of creativity being cultivated, and that's for me, yeah, it's one of the great beauties. So let's again take a moment of gratitude. Take a moment to give thanks for yourself, for the talents in yourself that you have already cultivated or still cultivating and that you've begun to share. Acknowledging also the courage that that takes. It's a very vulnerable place to come out and say, hey, I think I may have got something. And maybe also a moment of gratitude for the talents that you haven't really dared to cultivate and share, that are still sleeping somewhere, waiting to be acknowledged. And a moment of gratitude for those times in your life when you're in a state of flow, when you completely lose yourself in whatever you're doing. And that could be cooking or gardening, or the arts, or being with children, or whatever it is that makes your heart sing. Just acknowledge how you've already managed to realign your life in such a way that that has space to breathe. Okay, so I've talked about 3 dimensions: time, relationship, creativity. And these 3 for me actually form a kind of a magic triangle because they're connected. We need prosperity of time in order to cultivate our relationships and our talents. And conversely, we also need prosperity of creativity and relationships in order to enjoy our time. Because if we do not have relationships and creativity, an abundance of time is actually a terrible thing to have. So these 3 need to balance and they need to dance. And I've observed that, for some time, and some of you introverts or more introverted people, like me, maybe you observed that the lockdown was a great time for you, Just everybody finally being quiet and you have space to just go in and be creative, right? So for a while, we can balance a lack of relationship with creativity. And we can also balance a lack of creativity with relationships. But there comes a time when it's good to look for the balance. There comes a time when, now I'm ready to see some people again. Or you lose yourself in just being with everyone. Hey, what's my contribution? What do I have to share? What do I bring to this gathering? So if this is a triangle, there's 2 more dimensions. One is inside the triangle and one is outside. Let's go in. Inside the triangle is the dimension of prosperity of spirituality. At this dimension, I find is one of the more challenging to even put words to. And yet I noticed that in every traditional culture that I could read about, research about, hear about, witness, live with, visit, this was there in the center. And it was cultivated actively by the community. So what is it that we cultivate there? It's an inner connection to the mystery, the miracle, the wonder of this life. And it's something that apparently we as human beings in our current state of development need to continuously cultivate because we keep losing it. We go about our life and we lose it. So we need ritual. We need practices to cultivate that inner connection to that miracle within us, to that life force, to the great mystery, to the place in you that goes, wow, what a miracle that we're here. What a miracle that we get to experience this. I have no idea what this is. Can you just take a moment to acknowledge that? We don't know what this is, but it's here. So we need to cultivate that in order to continue to return to sanity in some way. Because without this connection, we lose it. We lose our sanity. So again, let's take a moment of gratitude. Take a moment to acknowledge the ways in which you have already begun to cultivate this in your life. The practices you've taken on, the rituals you've developed, the maybe Sangha community of practice that you're in some way a part of. Because some part in you knows this is important, I need this, I need it to be well. And the world needs me to cultivate this in order to heal. So take a moment to acknowledge that in yourself. And then take a moment to give thanks for this mysterious life force within you, for the miracle of life that you are an expression of. And that is such a gift that we so often overlook, which is why it's so important we stop every once in a while. Okay, let's go on to the fifth and final dimension that surrounds the other four, that everything is embedded in and sustained by. And that is ecological prosperity. Ecological prosperity. When I talk about this in other contexts, frequently I'm told, wait a minute, shouldn't that be economy? And that's obviously the framework that we live in right now, the illusion that we live in. That we really believe that our material needs are covered through the economy. And of course, that is a complete illusion. Because like all other species, we are sustained through the ecosystems that we are embedded in, that we are a part of actually. And it's so important to return to that awareness and to wake up from that illusion that the economy is this mysterious, magical thing that exists completely independent of the ecosystems. And for me, prosperity of ecology is one of the more challenging and painful dimensions. Each of the dimensions that I've talked about is about cultivating connection. It's about reconnecting. Reconnecting to this moment, reconnecting to the rhythms and cycles of time. reconnecting to each other, reconnecting to our talents, reconnecting to the miracle of life. With ecological prosperity, it's about reconnecting to all the other species on the planet. And remembering how to build relationships, how to heal our relationships with all the non-human species on the planet. And to build relationships that are respectful, that are sustainable, and that acknowledge the needs of everyone. And the reason why this is, for me, one of the more painful dimensions is because that when we tune into those connections, we meet an enormous pain. Because these connections have been so violated by us. And this, for me, is one of the big gifts of the work that reconnects, of Joanna Macy's work, that she has acknowledged the importance of honoring that pain, and we'll be going there. Because only by honoring that pain do we manage to reconnect. And I know many of us are in that process or have been in that process of honoring that pain as a part of reconnecting. And probably you've also heard it like, what is your problem? Can't you just enjoy? When we have this kind of derogatory term, Weltschmerz, pain of the world. It's kind of like, you have nothing better to do than to wallow in that. And that discredits the sacredness of that pain. It discredits that this pain, becoming aware of that pain, even having the courage to let that pain become conscious in your system, is a crucial part of this step in our evolution. And it's hard. It's unbearable. It feels like dying. And what makes it even more challenging is that all of us were born into the bubble of the industrial age. We do not know how to meet our material needs outside that bubble. We don't know how to live outside of the bubble of the industrial system. So we become aware of that pain, we want to change it, and we meet the limitations of being able to change it on our own. And even if you find a few dozen or a few hundred other people who feel the same, like, okay, let's found an eco-village, let's do it. You meet the limitations of being able to do that, even with a few hundred people. And yet we know that the bubble, the illusion of the industrial age is bursting. And we know we need to figure this out. We need to reconnect. We need to acknowledge the connections to the ecosystem, and so we need to find ways to repair our connections. And we need to do that individually, we need to do that as communities, and we need to do that on a huge scale. And gratefully, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people working on this. So let's take a moment to acknowledge that. Let's take a moment of gratitude. First of all, for the courage that it's taken you to open to that pain in your life at some point, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Take a moment to acknowledge that in yourself. And then let's take a moment to give thanks to the fact that there's many of us who are feeling this. Many of us we're connecting with this, that more and more of us are looking for ways in all the different fields to work this out. Even though we don't know how. And what drives us is a longing for feeling, longing to reconnect, longing to come home, to weave ourselves back into the web of life that sustains us. And take a moment to acknowledge and give thanks for all the steps that you've already taken in your own life to cultivate ecological prosperity. Okay, so I've taken you through the map of true prosperity, suggesting 5 dimensions: prosperity of time, relationships, creativity, spirituality, and ecology. And I'm offering this map to you as a way to maybe understand more deeply what you're going on about. What's driving you? Why all these changes in your life? And to give you a language to be able to talk to people who don't understand what you're on about. To give you a language to also become more precise as to, okay, why are we making certain decisions in certain ways? Why are we designing certain systems in certain ways? Because it will allow people to share their talents. Or because it will allow people to have prosperity of time. And I'm also offering it to you, knowing that there's many people here who live in community, but I believe there's even more people here who would like to live in community, right? And very often, this dream of living in community has a very romantic, utopian touch.
Yep.
And I know many people, they wait for that day when they'll live in community, and then their life will be great. I think the people laughing are the ones who've been living in community for a while. So, for me, living in community is great. I founded a community not far from here. And now I don't live in community. And living in community is a great way to cultivate true prosperity. And for me, the eco-villages are really these laboratories where we develop like new cultural technologies and other technologies, and we try different things. And then these laboratories, actually, they send people and knowledge and consciousness back out into the system. For me, that's the function of these eco-villages. So they are like innovative hubs. And it's very intense to live in them, because you're like in this cutting-edge research lab thing, right? So for many people, that's for a while. And then often they're thrown back out into the big ocean, and then they're asked to share what they found. And of course there are people who spend their whole life in that cutting-edge research facility. But my point is this: it doesn't really matter if you live in community or not, because anyway, you're part of community. What matters is to what extent can you cultivate true prosperity in your life? To what extent is your life aligned with a new definition of prosperity? And it doesn't even have to be exactly this definition. Yeah, this is just a starting point for a conversation. So I want to invite you to stop waiting for that magical day when you're going to live in community and much rather look, okay, now in my life, how can I cultivate these 5 dimensions? With whom can I cultivate more relationships? With whom can I dare more connection? With whom can I share more of my talents? How can I change my life in such a way that I have more prosperity of time, of spirituality, of kunti? And the beauty of that is the more you do that, you become the change you want to see in the world. And you develop a lifestyle, no matter where you are, that is in alignment with the change that we need. And that will actually make it much easier for you to transition into living in community, if that's what you want to do, or if that's what's on your path. But don't wait for that, okay? Don't wait for that. Life is too precious. And the other thing I want to just briefly point out, one of the things that I've observed over the years is that many people want to live in community, move to community, and in some way, and often this is not conscious, they're hoping that that will resolve the challenges they have in relationships. It doesn't work, guys. So my big recommendation is, take advantage of the incredible workshop program here. There's a lot on social skills. Get your social skills up to speed before you move into a community. You'll do everyone and yourself a big favor. Yeah. Thank you. So the thing is, it does work, but it's the hard way. Yeah, it does work because moving into community with all your relationship issues is going to bring it up, and you're going to have 100 mirrors and not just one. But it's the hard way. So as much as you can work on your relationship skills before, the easier the transition will be. And the more likely also you will be welcome in a community and they will want to keep you. Okay, so this is what I want to offer, this map of true prosperity as a starting point for a new conversation we need to have about what is a good life. And I'm really looking forward to journeying with you through the coming days. Tomorrow is the day that is dedicated to honoring our pain, and I will be offering a workshop that is called Thriving Relationships Through Conscious Discharge. So I will be teaching a practice that for me has been the game changer when it comes to healthy relationships. And I know many eco-villages and conscious communities struggle with people's emotional baggage and the lack of emotional hygiene. So if that rings a bell, I look forward to seeing you in the workshop tomorrow, I believe at 11:30 in the main hall. And I wish everyone just beautiful gathering, and I hope we'll use these days to really cultivate lots and lots and lots and lots of true prosperity together, and I feel it will be a beautiful celebration. Thank you so much. Thank you.